Hey everybody, I see there's a couple people on. Happy Friday, 6 people. Now it's really your show, Karen. I don't want to take over. I don't want to take over, but I'm going to introduce you, to introduce me, introducing you. It's like a Laurel and Hardy episode. This presentation is for the Lehigh Valley Aquarium Society. Now, I'm here with Miss Karen Haas, who is the Imperial Grand Poobah and doer of all things, the person that makes it happen behind the scenes. And what else do you do, Karen? I know you do a lot. You are the mind behind the organization right now.
Yeah, we just elected a board, so I have help now, and so I'm not the only one behind the scenes. We have a total of 5 board members. Try to keep it simple. Uh, Bill Hutt, um, and I'm terrible. I'm terrible with names, and now I'm on the spot. and
Well, yeah.
I if I open up the link here, Bill Hutt. I already said him. Bill Hutt, Pete Bruce, Scott Daw, and Paul Miola are your board members for this year. We are working on to get the 501c3.
And Bill is here. Bill says hello there.
Yes.
Now, if you click over to the right in your upper right hand corner, you'll see the comments and you'll see what they're putting in the comment section. Hey, everybody. I'm just going to tell you that D is winging it. I actually had all the network service in my area go down today. So I'm going to speak through this presentation. I'm going to keep it live because I am not you guys know I can talk you to death, but I don't believe in regurgitating data. I like to keep it simple to the user and make it friendly. So if you guys have any questions at any time and point, you can post them in the comments. And hello, Bill. Hello, Mr. B Aquatics. What's up, Ryan? The wife is on there saying hello. She told me not to have a heart attack, so I'm trying not to have a heart attack. But as Miss Haas says, the Lehigh Valley Aquarium Society is up and coming. It's not up and coming. It's being reinvented because of all the state of the world going on, the COVID and everything. Most of our aquarium societies have not been able to meet. So the virtual presence is very important to us. And we're trying to give you guys something to keep you stimulated, to keep you in the hobby, and to generate interest. And by all means, to generate interest in the Lehigh Valley Aquarium Society. So before I get into the talk, and I know I put Karen on the spot because I tried to get her to remember every name. I forget all the names. Lehigh Valley has a presence on Facebook. You can check them out on Facebook to get more information. We're all posting events for all upcoming activities in all of our groups on Facebook. And as you know, I'm posting whatever I can, store tours, Aquarium Society information, any sea updates, the Northeast Coast Conference of Aquarium Societies information online and keep it as fresh as possible. But hey, Mr. Gray made it. Hi all. Don made it. He was texting early. He wanted to make sure he got the link. Hello everybody. But we want to keep everything fresh and keep you guys active and keep you going online. So rain, snow, or shine, I would not miss this presentation. I told Ms. Haas if I had to climb into that pole and hook my wire up to the neighbor's house, we would get this presentation going. So I'm going to read everything off. I'm going to go through a majority of what it is. We're going to talk tonight about the pitfalls and perils of saltwater transition. And one of the things we had tonight is the perfect example. Before I get into the presentation, I'm going to touch on a majority of the freshwater people. We were talking before we went live. Do you have a contingency, Ms. Haas, Karen, if your power goes out? We have issues. We never know when it's going to happen. We don't have battery backups that keep all of our fish rooms running for the most part. But have you ever experienced that in PA?
Yes. Well, currently, since we moved into this house with this fish room, I was down in the fish room working and all the power went out. And I was like, oh crap. Because everything went dark, and there's only the sliding glass door is the only thing that would let light in if it's daytime. There's no other windows in our basement. And I just waited 30 seconds and luckily everything came back on. But one thing we did do prior to, when we moved in and what we had in our prior fish room was a battery backup that you would normally use for a computer. We bought one that cost about $125, and we have our central air pump running plugged into that. So when the power goes out, the power continues to keep the air pump running, which provides air to every fish tank in the room. So even if a filter goes out on a large fish tank, there's still a sponge filter or an air stone running in every fish tank. And that will help prevent our fish from, dying from lack of oxygen. Now, I haven't tested the extent of how long that battery is going to last on one of those air pumps, but from the wattage, it said, like if your computer is so many watts, it's going to last like an hour. So that's what I'm expecting. That battery backup will at least give me an hour of power, which most power outages, hopefully last a few minutes or a couple of hours. Now I did have my first fish room that I started when I got back into the hobby about 10 years ago. We had the snowstorm that gave us 2 feet of snow. And I lived in Center City, Allentown, and I didn't expect the power to go out because of living in town. But I was without power for 5 days.
I went through that too with Hurricane Sandy, and it was a heartbreaker. I was like on the edge.
Yeah, I borrowed a generator, a small generator from my father, and I had to fill it with gas about every 2 hours. So at night, I had to sleep, and I'd sleep about 4 hours, get up, put some gas, and start it again. So, to keep the heater and the air and the filter going on the fish tanks.
So that's a good question because I know YouTube Reefer jumps in and out of the shows all the time. He says to be sure to test it frequently. I haven't tested mine. I usually use it more in the summer. I use it outside and inside. But saltwater, I'm going to pose that question. We haven't jumped into the presentation, but I try to keep it open to both freshwater and saltwater. I have been able to count on probably one hand the amount of saltwater people that even have a battery operated air pump. During Hurricane Sandy, I didn't lose any coral in the 120 gallon. I had a 125 gallon tank. It was full of fish. I had 3 tanks down here, freshwater planted tanks. Of course, they were dark, so coral and things closed. The plants, not so much, but I'm posing a question to the comment community. How many of you guys even have a battery operated pump? You can get a battery operated air pump, a simple one that runs on D batteries or C batteries for $20. And that pump lasted me 3 days on one set of batteries. So all I did was buy some batteries just in case. I got them from Amazon. You get 20 of them for like $10. And I have a car battery, a DC battery with an inverter that I can run. And like you say, the inverter will run. Matter of fact, that's a good point. I didn't hook that to these tanks. The inverter will run probably for the best of a week if I just run an air pump and multiple lines. So
Yeah.
saltwater hobbyists, if you're in there now, go out and get yourself some sort of contingency. Look, my data went down. My network went down. If Ryan's still out there, Farm Boy Reef, we were working on controllers. We were doing a big thing on controllers, and he'll tell you, I thought I was going nuts because I'm saying, I know my passwords and I just can't get into the system. I can't get into the network, and I know that it's not me. I know it pretty sure. But when you put all of the technology into your home, especially with fish tanks, timers, controllers, pH probes, CO2 regulators. That's a CO2 regulator with no power. Will it stay on or will it stay off? Like we forget about, what happens if you're running a CO2 for either a planted tank or a saltwater tank, and you're trying to keep calcium running, and that CO2 regulator doesn't turn off. The last time I saw a tank die off during a power outage, it was that. Like it's supposed to fail, and the solenoid is supposed to close. But what if it fails and it's open?
Yeah.
So that's a big point of contingency with not having technology. So Mark Wellington says, I have a whole house generator, and since that broke once, we even have a portable backup. Well, Mark, I bought a portable generator, and I'm going to tell you because it's saltwater transition and freshwater transition. I didn't jump in the presentation, and I'm going to give you real life, real practical application. I didn't change the fuel in that generator.
Mm.
So the fuel had been sitting in that generator for, I don't know, a couple of months. I never turned it on. When I turned it on, I heard that. And I was like, oh my God, there's old gas in there. And now I didn't have a backup again. So what do? Thank God I had battery operated pumps. I just went, and I don't think I had one in front of me. I just had one in my hand the other day, but I'm sure it's not here because I want it. But
Yeah.
I have one for each zone. So if I have 3 tanks there, that's one battery operated pump. If I have 2 tanks there, that's one battery operated pump, and one upstairs. And I know that those pumps will run for at least 2 to 3 days. So now you mentioned another good point. Your fish room's in the basement. You're in the basement, all the lights go off. Saltwater tank, you start panicking. Freshwater tank, you figure you're trying to buy yourself a little bit of time, but if it gets cold, guess what? You start panicking because there's no heat. I keep these throughout my house. Portable LED lights. I got stuck in the basement. You ever see a little kid afraid of the dark? I couldn't see my hands in front of me, and it was dark. So when I'm not home, my wife is used to knowing that we have flashlights on every level of the house. We have LED lights on every level of the house. And by my tanks, I have LEDs. I have LEDs that I can turn on and off so that I can at least see. I mean, I could put this over a tank, worst case scenario, and I can check it, or I can find my way out of the house. It can be really dangerous if you lose power.
Yeah, we have a few flashlights in the fish room so that we can use it like to shine a light into a cave to see if there's egg or fry. So we have a bunch of those flashlights. And then I usually have my cell phone in my pocket. So at least I could pull that out and turn the light on to at least get me over to the bagging station and get the lights. Yeah, most of us have a phone in our pocket, and we can at least turn a flashlight on it to get around. Our long-term plan, we're trying to get hooked up to the gas main, and get gas in our house, and then the long-term plan is to get a generator that runs off of the gas.
The natural gas.
Gas, yeah.
See, in New York, they limit us to what we can use because we're so close together. We can't properly vent. So even a generator being outside, you vent that exhaust air. And a lot of people have had fatal accidents because they run them in the house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can't.
And yeah. So K Snail says during Sandy, he used the water. He heated water and put the bottles and floated them in the tank. Very smart move. I'm going to tell you one other thing, and people get in a lot of trouble with that. People don't realize that the stove boiling water is almost the equivalent of baseboard heater.
Yeah.
When you boil water, that will actually heat the room, you know. So my wife kind of called me Davy Crockett during Hurricane Sandy because we have a fireplace. I have 11 tanks. I'm worried about heat. How am I going to keep this going? And you have that point of panic. So Going from freshwater to saltwater, you don't worry as much about freshwater, and you should, because when it gets dark, what do plants do? Plants start consuming oxygen.
Yeah.
So you actually start suffocating your fish in the freshwater. Now, freshwater people, this is for you. Just turbulent water will oxygenate the water. So even if that water is moving, it dissipates the CO2 into the air and you get gas exchange. That can be a godsend. So when going to a saltwater situation, you have the same problems as a freshwater tank keeper. You just have to apply your reasoning different. The fish still need air. Fish still need, the basic cycle of life: water, oxygen, food, and well-being. So the fact that people put so much technology into saltwater and don't put it into freshwater is kind of my raise my fist moment, like power to the people, freshwater, freshwater representative, because it's the same living ecosystem. It's just different chemistry. And
Um, Low tech wise, you can probably take a bottle and put a hole in it and let the water and put it above your aquarium so that it can drip uh, into your aquarium, and then that will make ripples and help the gas exchange as well.
I'm stealing that. That's going to be the tip of the week. On the
Yeah,
LVAS, that is definitely going to be the tip of the week. If you guys didn't hear that, get a 3-liter bottle, fill it with water, aquarium water, have a line. You can put probably a shut off valve, have it slowly drip into the tank and disturbing the water surface. That is
yeah.
very good. Now I'm definitely gonna share that on the Facebook page. Ryan says these dropping the facts. I am a advocate of the aquarium hobby. I'm not a I talk like I'm 100 years old at 50, right? Um, I love technology, but I love the science more. I've had the benefit of having good mentors in this hobby. People like Gary Lang, people like Joe Aiulo, people like Joe Graffinino, people like Al Teresi, people like all these people that I've met, people like Karen. If you guys don't know Karen Haas, there is a walkthrough on YouTube. I'm going to post it on the LVAS, the Lehigh Valley Aquarium Society Facebook page, of their fish room. And I was greatly impressed because I would not see you as a person that is so into fish the way that you are, and the caring for so many endangered species of fish like gadeids and all of these hard to find native species. So we got to get your saltwater tank.
Yeah, that's a long term plan.
Oh, long term. How
I
long is long term?
Oh well, I've got to cut back on some of what we have now, and
I
then
can be very convincing. Very.
yeah. And because I'd like to work with those Banggai cardinal fish. Since you're speaking about care species, uh,
Okay, so
and they're
the
mouth
good
breeders that you can breed. It's a saltwater fish that shouldn't be too hard to breed.
the good thing about the internet going down and I'm working from the phone is that I can take you on the tour and show you what I couldn't show you in the presentation. So, first and foremost, I'm going to tell everybody we're going to jump into the presentation. I'm going to tell you about me before I go into that. I'm a child of the 70s. I've been keeping fish tanks since 1979. I got my own fish tank in 1983, but I'm going to flash this picture for you here. Don't laugh. I'm very self conscious. But this is Little D. And if you can see that, that is in 1983. That was my first fish tank there. That is a 40-gallon tank. And if you could see that stand, you would see that it had been in our house for about 3 years dry because my mother decided she was going to buy fish, had no idea what to do, killed them all, and that tank sat empty until I says, Mom, I want to fish. I says, I want to fish. We went to Al's Aquarium in Brooklyn on Nostrand Avenue. I bought this fish and I fell in love with it from there. But from looking at that stand, what I know now is Thank God the dog used to sleep under the stand. I don't know what was keeping that stand standing because it was completely waterlogged to the point where the doors came off and I was using them to put his toys on. So, we live and we learn. But comparing technology from the 80s to technology now, they used to make fish tanks out of fiberboard, pressboard. You really didn't see a lot of either they were steel stands or they were pressboard. And once pressboard gets wet, what happens? Now, we didn't do saltwater tanks then because the technology to keep saltwater fish alive back then was basically fill a tank with water. Only one brand of salt that I knew was around there, and that was Instant Ocean. We didn't even know how to measure the salt. We basically counted cups of salt, put it in there. I think the first hydrometer, I don't even remember when that came out. It was a floating hydrometer. It looked like a thermometer. We didn't know to turn the flow off because with the thermometer would go up and down, and we weren't sure of the readings. But from there, the hobby has grown by leaps and bounds, leaps and absolute leaps and bounds. And with that being said, you mentioned bang eye cardinals. I know my boys on the Reef Collective, the Reefing Collective, will tell you that I've been trying to breed these spotted cardinals, and now he's going to be shy. My female just ran. Oh, there she is. I have a pair of spotted cardinals. I had no intention of this tank becoming a reef, but as you can see, these guys are like I got to come up with a name for them, but anybody can do it. This is an 11-gallon Aqua Springs fish tank, and it's running for 3 years now. I have an Aqua Clear. I think that's an Aqua Clear 20. I do water changes of 5 gallons once every 2 weeks, not even every week, once every 2 weeks. I do a 5 gallon water change. And I have a heater in there and I have water. You can see I have a little 5-watt pump. You can see the oxygenating the water and keeping that circulation going. And that can be your easiest way to transitioning into salt water. So anybody can do it. It's just that we kind of make the hobby really intimidating. Like, how do you feel about the hobby, Karen? If I could ask you, what would be the one thing stopping you from turning one of those dozen tanks into a saltwater?
Um, having one more thing to take care of, which is mixing the salt water and making sure.
Ah, and that's very interesting because did you know if you got a 20-gallon tank, and I don't recommend anything smaller than a 40 really for a starter, but if you got a 20-gallon tank and put a 10-gallon tank under it, how easy your water changes are?
Yeah, I could imagine that would make it easier.
Because you put the water in a 10-gallon tank, it's stirring all day, and all you do is take 5 gallons out and pump 5 gallons in. And guess what? It's just as easy as a freshwater tank now.
Yeah. Before we go too much farther, I had a special announcement.
Let's hear it.
So everybody that's in the talk right now in the meeting gets to hear it first. The board has decided that we're going to have a live auction, a live virtual auction for February. Tentatively, I have to still set up the auction, but a member, I believe, of the Boston Aquarium Society has created a website that they have used up in the New England area for a live auction during this COVID time. The link and all the information I'm going to post this weekend on our Facebook group. But the plan is it's a live auction. It'll have proxy bidding. The bidding will be open for about 2 weeks. Tentatively, I have planned that the auction will end about the 15th, like on a Friday night. And then Saturday, people will come to the bowling alley in Northampton, where we've had a few of our meetings, and drop off your fish if you're selling. And then about an hour later, after the lots are sorted, we can open it up for people to come and pick up their fish if they're buying. And this will be open to anybody that is able to drop off or pick up fish on that day, unless they make other arrangements with somebody else to drop off or pick up their lots. But somebody from 2 hours away in New Jersey, New York, Maryland, Delaware, down the Philadelphia area, this would be online, that they can also bid on your lots. And hopefully, if you're selling fish, it'll give you a good price. And if you're buying, you'll be able to get something that isn't in your area. And then it'll also be a membership drive. So we're going to start taking paid memberships this year. And if you're a paid member, you'll get a discount on what the club's cut is going to be on the auction. So that is the special announcement.
That's awesome.
Yeah, more information to follow on our Facebook group. And I also want to thank one of the stores that has donated to the club in the past. They donated a gift certificate for the raffle for the flea market that we had this past fall. And it's our saltwater only store called Something Fishy here in Northampton. I got a message that if you're a VIP member, they text message a 20% off all their live corals until the 17th of this month. So that's just for this weekend. So you have to sign up and be a VIP member. And because of COVID, you also have to schedule an appointment to go to the store. But that is a huge saltwater only store here in Northampton.
And you said that's called Something Fishy?
Something Fishy. Yeah, not to be confused with the Something Fishy that's out in Ohio. And I think there's a couple other stores across the country called Something Fishy. But
well, there's Something Fishy in Brooklyn, my internet service. It's Something Fishy, all right.
But definitely want to give a shout out to that store. So if you are looking into getting into saltwater, that is the store to go to in the northeast of Pennsylvania. So back to D and his wonderful presentation.
Well, the other thing I want to harp on is that there's more than one Lehigh Valley Aquarium Society Facebook page. So which one? I want to make sure they're directed to the right one, because all this information is going to be on the Facebook page. I'll post it in a few places as well.
The board has decided that once we get our website up and running, the Lehigh Valley Aquarium Society 3, which is a private group, is going to be taken down.
Okay.
So the Lehigh Valley Aquarium Society group, which is public and viewable to everyone, will remain at this time. And that is the site where most of the people are at and where we are going to be posting the information.
Okay. So you guys look out for that. I'm a post hog, so I'll definitely post it. And how do they become VIP members? Because we want them to get that Something Fishy. We all believe in discounts, especially as frag people. I got to save money any way I can.
Let's see. Remember what their website is. I think you have to. I'm trying to remember how I became one.
And you guys, if you guys spend all your money on frags, put down below, all my money goes to frags. Maybe I'll surprise everybody with something. I'll donate a little surprise gift. Now,
they do have a Facebook page, so I think you can go there, and they post specials and used equipment. Sometimes they give used tanks away for free. I've seen that. But their website is toofishy.com, and that is toofishy.com.
Okay, so we'll also post that in the Facebook page and put it for everybody to pick up. And that is one of the most important things of fish keeping, which goes right into what we were talking about in the discussion. Having a good contact for fish store a mentor, and someone that can help you get started in the hobby. It's not always about going on YouTube and going on media boards and going on these pages, because you want to know someone that actually keeps fish, one, successfully keep fish. That's definitely a thing, because I know people that buy all kinds of fish. They say, "Oh, I got this blonde naso tang, or I got gadaids, or I got cichlids, I got Oscars," but they don't tell you they only have them for a week. You know,
Yeah.
you have them for a week, and the next day the yellow tang's upside down, and they're like, "Oh, how do I cure this? How do I cure that? How do I cure ick? How do I cure velvet?" So having a good mentor and a good club, being part of Brooklyn Aquarium Society, I can definitely learn. I have learned to appreciate the importance of being part of a club. If you guys are not part of a club, if you're in the PA area, if you're in the Brooklyn area, look up all the clubs in your area, because the best resource for information is a hobbyist with experience. Um, and have a tank. Yeah, Ryan, you smart Alec. And have a tank. The tank is actually the least important. The least important part of the hobby is actually the tank. As I get into that, I'll tell you why. But you were going to say something?
Just so everyone knows, there is a list in the files section of the Facebook group. There is a list of aquarium stores in Pennsylvania. I've broken it down. Of course, the first list I posted was stores that are within a convenient drive of Lehigh Valley area. It's in a Word file, and I've also posted a PDF, and that'll say Lehigh Valley area aquarium stores. I've also started adding aquarium stores beyond our area. Like if you're traveling to central Pennsylvania, I have a list of stores there. You know, if you're traveling, you can stop there. I recently posted a list of stores for New Jersey that I'm aware of, because I know a lot of people travel to New Jersey, and New Jersey has a lot of great fish stores as well. So everybody, you can also go to the files section, and the Something Fishy store in Northampton is in the files. You can access the Word file or the PDF and get their phone number, their address, their website through that.
And if you send me the Word file, I'll import it into a media file, and I can use that if you want to. I can help you, develop that for the website too.
Okay, thank you.
Make it. I know I'm good for spreading myself thin. Don't worry about it. But yeah, this is how you give birth to a hobby. So in the freshwater hobby, a little known fact, and I'm gonna pull it up. I know I'm not gonna show it. I'm not gonna get everybody dizzy moving the camera around and everything else. I've been doing this forever, so I really don't need slides. But little known fact, the freshwater hobbyists comprise over 12 million in the world. There's over 12 million freshwater hobbyists. Do you realize that about 2.5 million are saltwater? So that means a large majority of you guys out there were either started as freshwater or just had some fear of going into the saltwater because maybe you didn't have a good resource to help you get started, or maybe you didn't trust the store that you were utilizing to get your information. So first thing in building a saltwater system is you want to start out with a plan. Going to start out with a plan. What's a plan? A plan doesn't mean going out and buying a tank. As Ryan mentioned, Farm Boy Reef, he says, important, buy the tank. I'm the opposite. I say the last thing you should do is buy the tank. Fact. I'm going to give you a known fact. Most people buy a tank that's either too small for them to keep stable or too big for them to manage. Now, how many of you guys out there, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, how many of you guys out there see a person do a big tank build? They go, oh, I got a 90-gallon tank. They've been running it for 6 years. It's beautiful. They say, I'm going to go to a 300-gallon tank. They go 1 year in, 2 years in, then you don't see them on YouTube anymore. Usually either the price and economics of maintaining that is too much for them. They didn't plan for it or budget for it, or it's too much for them to maintain, which is why I was mentioning to Karen the idea, if you get a 20-gallon tank, your water change should be 10 gallon. If I get a 40-gallon tank, underneath my tank should be 20 gallons, because my water change is going to be that much easier to do. Because if I have a 40-gallon tank, and even if I have a 40-gallon tank and I have a 20-gallon tank under it, I put a piece of glass into it and make one half of that the sump. I'm easy building a sump, no problem. Half of that is the sump, that's 10 gallons. The other half of that is your water change water. All you have to do is empty the sump into a bucket and put the water into the other side, and you just did a water change without lifting any buckets. So there's a lot of ways to make your life easier. Right now, I'm going to give you a sneak peek. Those of you that don't follow me on YouTube, and I'm not a YouTube, not going to use, I'm not a YouTube hooker. I like sharing information. Um, I had a whole bunch of stuff going on. I have controllers going on. This is one, two, three, four tanks on this rack. This is the 20-gallon Nano that most of the guys see in the videos, because I just wanted to prove that it could be done. It's not about the size, it's about the science. I took a portion of this tank and I made it into the filtration area. So this area is my sump. No water leaves that tank. I can go on vacation, I can go away, and I don't worry about water spilling on the floor, and I don't worry about the ecosystem of the tank. You can do that also if you plan. So plan, ask somebody that knows, what do you need for the tank? The second thing is know what it is to create an ecosystem. An ecosystem is the same in a freshwater tank as it is in a saltwater tank. Now I'm going to get a lot of hate. I'm going to get a lot of hate by mentioning that. The science is water, oxygen, CO2 dispersion, food. Biological filtration isn't even always in that picture, because when you first start the tank, you have to establish biological filtration. So you're actually managing the filtration until that biological cycle gets started. And people will argue, we can have that debate 5 ways to Friday. There are many ways to add bacteria to a tank. They have, I love Dr. Tim's all-in-one. I use that. There are a lot of Two Little Fishies. There are even Fluval has some, but know how to stabilize the ecosystem. The ecosystem consists of your tank, the fish, the water, filtration. Very important. Not enough information goes into that before people start. And the biggest result is algae and fish die off. So that is the second portion. The most important factor. The most important factor are these little guys here, the fish. Don't worry about the coral. Worry about the fish. There's a saying somebody told me last week. They says, do you just run out and buy a kennel and then get the cheapest dog food that you can get for your dog? Have you ever heard someone say, hey, what's the cheapest collar I could get for my dog? You want to choke your dog to death? We don't do that. So don't do it with fish. Don't buy the cheapest tank. You get a 10-gallon tank. I've seen people get 10-gallon tanks. Not to say it can't be done, but then they want the system, the equivalent of a 55-gallon tank. They want to grow it in a 10-gallon tank. It's not fair to the animals, and it's usually short-lived. It can be done. As I showed up there, that's an 11-gallon tank, but it takes work. It takes dedication. So do your homework. When you get those fish, don't get them before you do your homework. The next thing that I'll get into is know what animals you're going to get before you get them. That means get a book. There are brilliant books out there. There's the Marine Guide to Aquarium Fishes. There is the Ecosystem. There is a book called Fish. I had books by Ronald Axelrod that I have that are probably older than many of the people watching this stream. I have Axelrod books dating back to, wow, I guess maybe 70s, maybe. They're old, pretty old books. But the point is, I can look at that fish before I buy it. I can see what that fish needs. I can see what it eats, how big it's going to get. and I can plan for it before I buy it. Too many times we go to the store, we look at what's pretty, and we say, "Hey, can I put that in a 30-gallon tank?" We ask the guy. We never tell them that we have 10 fish in the tank already. I've gotten in not an argument, but I actually had a person in the store 2 weeks ago. Um, I went in a store, local store, Petco, nice place, clean, big box store. Peacock Gudgeons. Now, Karen, you know how hard it is to find Peacock Gudgeons, let alone in a Petco.
Yes.
Peacock Gudgeons, very hard to find nanofish. I have a few of them here. Of course, they won't come out now because I'm looking for them, but one side of the tank, one side of the room I have freshwater, other side I have saltwater. Peacock Gudgeons were in this store. Peacock Gudgeons were $11 a fish, and the guy in front of me says, I want to get 6 of these fish. And I was like, wow, those are Peacock Gudgeons. Those are very hard to find. He says, well, how big did they get? So that raised a flag. You know, he was willing to spend $10 a fish, had no idea what they were. He
Yeah.
didn't even know what kind of fish they were. So my brain says, hey, is he going to put these in a tank with Oscars? Because that's $10 fish. It's not going to get bigger than an inch and a half. And I walked them through what the fish was. I showed him a picture of the fish. I showed him, how big they get, what they fed, what they ate. And he left and he said, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And he bought his fish. Hopefully they're alive now. When he left, the woman there that I've known for years actually says, D, you told him too much. And I felt that was very awkward. I could see that, you don't want to turn a person off to buying a fish as a store salesperson or a owner. But at the same time, I'm thinking if I sell that guy $60 worth of fish and he puts them in a tank with Oscars and they last 10 minutes, wouldn't he be angry?
Yeah.
So,
Or we have the opposite situation where the fish grows too big. They sell these cute little pacus or the common plecostomus, and 6
I
months.
did that.
Yeah, I mean, we've all done that when we started out. And 6 months to a year down the road, this fish is huge, and they're like, can anyone take this fish,
Of course.
And actually I kind of did that recently, just a couple of years ago. When I was a kid, I always wanted electric catfish, and I bought it. And there's probably a dozen different species of them. Some of them stay small. Some of them get really big, up to 3 feet, and they almost all look alike. So you really don't know what species you're getting.
No.
Well, ours grew to 2 feet within 2 and it was as big around as probably like a bag bologna, Thank goodness he didn't need a lot of tank space. I mean, they're not active swimmers. But he passed away before we had moved, and I was going to set up a big pond for him. I really loved him.
One tear for you.
Yeah, he was cute.
Well, I did the same thing. With the saltwater hobby, I'll tell you, I bought a what was it? A hogfish. I had a 30-gallon tank. It was the first time that I really put more into decorating the tank. I've been keeping saltwater tanks since 95, 96, 95. My first tank was a 30-gallon. I bought blue sand and I bought white sand. That goes to show you how crazy I was. I had blue sand on one side. I didn't know that every fish on earth goes out of its way to kick that sand up everywhere. So it's impossible for you to keep that blue and white sand separate. But anyway, I bought a hogfish and I says, wow, I had 3 snails yesterday. Now I got empty shells. I says, I didn't, it's a cute little fish. It has little whiskers on it, filters on the bottom. I just assumed it was a bottom feeder, but it's actually becomes pretty much of a snacker on little hermits and crustaceans, and it'll kick up the sand to find them. And I didn't know that, and the person in the store didn't tell me that. So that's one of the reasons why I promote stores. I do the store tours now. I go to stores, I see how they're run, and I give credit to people that I see explain to people, this is how big it's going to get. How big is your tank? How big is your system? and
And all
explain to people. Yeah. I mean, they don't even know how long your tank's been running, but I'll show you the components that I always bring to people when they're setting up the freshwater tank. And hard to see there, bear with me, but the first thing they do is they buy the tank. The tank is probably the least expensive part of the hobby. A tank is always the first thing you buy, but never the thing that costs you the most. you know, you're going to have to get a filter, saltwater tank, freshwater tank. You need a filter, you need a stand, you need substrate, you need lights, and what did I leave out? A heater. For the most part, you almost always need a heater. There are cold water species, and maybe they don't, but in any case, you need the same items that you need for a freshwater tank for the saltwater tank. Now, in the long run, I can get a controller, I can get a protein skimmer. Hasn't kept the saltwater fish, but I'll tell you for a fact, when I got into this hobby, we didn't have protein skimmers. There was no such thing as a protein skimmer. So there were saltwater tanks, but there was no such thing as a protein skimmer. I think the first protein skimmer I saw was in maybe mid 80s, and that was the Berlin. That came from Germany. The Berlin protein skimmer, which was groundbreaking technology. So the basics, when you first start the tank, you don't need the skimmer because you're not skimming anything yet, because the tank is new. But the same thing that you need for a freshwater tank, you're going to need for a saltwater tank. So your tank, let's say dollar per gallon sale, 40-gallon tank, $50. A stand, $100. Lights, I recommend now, if you get lights, you get the LED. If you're going to not know, and we're not talking about Reef lights, I recommend like Reef Brights. Reef Brights are a strip type light, such as this. If you can see that, you'll see these are Reef Bright. And the reason why I say that is because you may not want to start a reef tank, but Reef Bright, you can add more strips. You can put more over the tank without changing the footprint. And now, if you want to go to coral, you can add on. It's big enough to suffice and manage. Sand or gravel. You can have a saltwater tank with gravel. Is it done? Yes. Most fish stores used gravel for years and years and years. Now we've gone to sand because sand is the popular thing. We used to keep crushed coral. Crushed coral has all but disappeared in the hobby, but still probably the best means of maintaining your alkalinity and actually providing calcium. Bear with me, I'm plugging the phone in. So the same thing that you're going to run into in the saltwater tank, you're going to run into the freshwater tank. The next thing you're going to do is put it all together. Putting it all together is where you have to design where you're going to put your tank. You can look behind me. I had a cabinet in which this tank sat on for we've been in this house 18 years. That cabinet was in here before we bought the house, and I had probably $1,200 worth of stuff sitting on it. So built the cabinet, built the lighting into it, multiple strips. I have the original tank on top. You got to make sure that it's strong enough to facilitate your tank. Don't just get the bookcase you found on the street while you were driving home from work because, hey, I got to put a tank on top of this and I'm cooking. Many tanks have fallen through that because they're not made to withstand water. One of the things I do, and I kept it here, luckily I didn't use a slide, I use a polyurethane. I seal my tanks, even freshwater tanks. I seal them with a polyurethane with a primer, and the polyurethane goes on 3 coats. Saltwater, freshwater. It's a polyurethane sealer. But I tint it to the color that I want, so it actually acts as a paint. Now, the other thing you can use is marine varnish. Marine varnish works very well also. Clear varnish on metal will be your best friend. If you put the varnish on your metal stand, it's clear before you put the stand on it, probably save you 5 years from rust. And saltwater, we deal with a lot of rust. Here,
the salt is corrosive to metal.
Highly corrosive. One of the things which is really bad that I'll tell you, a lot of the filtration units we have now, the protein skimmers come with these magnets. These are really good, but if you do not keep them clean, this will happen. If you can see that, that used to be a magnet. That is all magnet residue, which luckily this wasn't in the tank, but that metal residue will empty into your tank and pollute your water. So the material that you select, keep it simple. Keep it simple. You're starting a new tank, you want the tank, you want the light, you want circulation, and what else? And the heater. You're going to add stuff as it cycles, but those are the main things. Now, sump, protein skimmer, those are things that you're going to buy. You're going to get them. You're going to need them. So they're in your budget, but you're just starting out. Do I recommend that you go out and get a $700 protein skimmer? No, because probably 60% of the people that go into the saltwater hobby think that they're going to into the reef hobby. And it's two different things, and they spend a lot of money and they end up really upset, and it ends up on Facebook Marketplace. Last year, I probably picked up 3 tanks over 100 gallons, actually 4 tanks that were over 100 gallons that people couldn't maintain. They couldn't maintain it because they didn't plan for the amount of maintenance that even the biggest tank with the biggest skimmer still needs a test. Um, a $49 pH probe that you can dip. I had mine here, but it's not here. But pH probe, if you don't have a controller, you can get a portable pH tester. Many companies sell them. Dip them in your water, get your pH reading. I can go to all of my tanks, freshwater and saltwater. I don't know if you use those, Karen, but that was probably the best gift that I got in 2020.
I do have a pH tester, and I haven't used it yet. I bought it. Haven't
Oh
used it.
man. Oh, you got it. Look, see, I feel you 100%. It sat. My friend Don, New York Gold, if he was watching, he says, dude, it's not as bad as you're saying. He actually brought me one, so I have to thank him for that. It's like early birthday gift. Let me tell you, that was the best thing I ever got because not only does it test freshwater and saltwater, I can go to each test. I mean, each tank and say up
Yeah.
8.2, up 7.8, 8 point, and I walk. And where I have a controller on one tank, that controller is not testing 11 tanks. I have 11 tanks in the house, and I can test freshwater and saltwater with the same pH tester.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that was a godsend. And once again, it's something that he's the only freshwater hobbyist that I know actually using it. So he sold me on it. So yeah, equipment. Plan for the extra water volume that you're going to have in your house and make your life easy. Now, we already mentioned doing your homework. A saltwater tank is not necessarily a reef tank. Um, this is a reef tank. Everybody knows what a reef tank is. You have all kind of colored corals. Most of the people that start out don't even know which coral is which. They say, I want the pink one, I want the yellow one. I'm guilty. I don't remember all the names. They have Superman, Zoa, you got the Hulk, this Blasto. Don't get caught up in all of the craze. You can have a beautiful fish only tank. This was one of our members wrote an article. This was, I believe, a 220-gallon fish only tank. He has 4 tanks in there. The tank is 8 feet long. He doesn't have to worry about the dosing. He doesn't have the strongest light in the world. And it's a beautiful tank. If you go over his house, you can watch that tank for hours. So be sure you may just want a saltwater fish tank, a fowler, a fish only with live rock. It's not imperative that you jump into the reef when you start a freshwater tank. I bet you have a 20-gallon tank in there. You don't have a 40-gallon tank in there. You can start that and have your Banghai Cardinals. Banghai Cardinals will actually do better in the smaller tank where you're changing the water. Like I don't want to turn the light on now. I have pajama cardinals in the 20. I have a school of pajama cardinals 3 in the 20, and I have the pair in the 11-gallon cube. And you see how big those fish got in that cube?
Yeah.
They're massive. They're massive. They grew. I haven't had them a year. I think maybe their birthday is coming. I bought them last January, so I guess their birthday is here. They're massive. And I bought four, and those two paired up. So the smaller tank, if you're trying to pair fish, was actually great. But if you're trying to start a reef, by all means, don't do anything smaller than a 40-gallon unless you absolutely have to. Um, the next thing I would say is be careful when getting used equipment, because used equipment can many times end up in broken equipment. you know, so whereas you got a great deal on that tank and it was $100, you may end up spending. So unless you get it from a good source and you can test it and whatever, try to get it from a trusty source, and try to get probably don't get the biggest thing that you can get. I know that's odd information, but don't get the biggest thing that you can get. Get the biggest thing that you can manage. Hey, my brother's on there. What's up, DJ Celsius? He's on there. I need a soundtrack for you. I'm gonna hit you up later. But don't get the biggest thing that you can afford. Get the biggest thing that you can manage. Um, like I say, a 40-gallon tank. Um, this tank here, freshwater tank. This is a 50 cube. You can see it's half full. Why is it half full? Because I have cold water species. I have plants that grow out of the water. It makes it easy for me to manage because it was easier to have the plants manage the water. And since I have terrestrial plants growing out of the water, when the lights go off, I realize my pH wasn't dropping. It wasn't becoming acidic. They weren't using all the water, and I mean the oxygen from the tank, because they're taking the nutrients in their roots. So I learned that from actually a good source, late great John Tadaro, late great John Tadaro, told me about growing plants out of the water, and it's a big help. So in the saltwater tank, we can do it. We can grow chaetomorpha, which is a saltwater algae. We can put it in the water, roll it around, and when we get ready to put fish in it, you can just as easy take that algae out. I mean, you can cycle a tank like that. It's not done by a lot of people, but some people do it. Um, Mark Wellington says that you have to calibrate them now. Now, I'm assuming he's talking about the pH testers, the pH probes. And yes, you do. Once in a while, you have to calibrate them to make sure that they're giving you the right readings. But let's say you have a freshwater tank. I can take my tester, put it in the freshwater tank, get 7.8. Then I can put it in the saltwater tank, get 8.3. And guess what? I know it's at least within range. And I can know that I'm getting a close to the mark reading. But when buying equipment, you want to familiarize yourself with the equipment. Shark Tank, Shark Tank. I think I know who that is. I'm looking at the comments and I think I know who that is. I can't afford a Shark Tank. That's for you. Unless you mean a bicolor shark, freshwater bicolor shark.
I think small saltwater sharks still reach 3 feet or something like that.
Well, yeah, you have the bamboo sharks, the cat sharks, which get about 2 feet, if I'm not mistaken. They get between 18. The biggest one I think I've seen is maybe 2 feet. And you can get them in probably 125 with minimal rock. Probably need a bigger tank because it's not really fair to them. But
yeah, because they need swimming space.
They need space to turn. And Facebook users, shout out. I see there's Facebook users, but it doesn't show your name. So if you're chiming in from Facebook, you have to give Facebook permission to show your name. We run into that every week with every show. Let me see. What's the difference between saltwater and freshwater? We covered that. The tank, same thing. You're just adding salt. All the equipment is icing on the cake. Does the equipment make your life easier? Yes. But I'm going to tell you, we've been having the debate for the last 3 weeks on controllers. What's a better controller? What's a bad controller? I have 11 tanks. I have Apex. I have a Hydros. I love both of those controllers, but guess what? The internet in my whole block just went down. I have no internet. Now, how am I controlling anything? how am I how do I control it? Well, blessing is the hydros I can control with Bluetooth, but like we say, if the power goes down, how much of this technology are you relying on? Don't put all of your eggs in technology. Technology is beautiful. And by all means, I love my controllers. They make life easier. I don't need timers. I have my Wi Fi camera here. I was showing Karen earlier. When I'm at work, my camera turns around the whole room. I can log on. I can see my tanks. I can check them when I'm on vacation. But if I have no Wi Fi, guess what? Good old fashioned battery powered fish feeder right here will keep feeding my fish. And there's no network, no data, no controller. So contingency. Um, fresh water versus salt water. If you're scared to go from freshwater to saltwater, ask yourself three things. How much do you think it's going to cost? Because cost is usually the first thing that comes up with saltwater is like, oh, it costs too much. I have to buy the salt. I have to buy the fish. The fish are a little more expensive, but I set up that cube with mollies. Mollies are brackish water fish. I've bred mollies in full reef with coral. Beautiful fish. You can breed them in a saltwater tank, and when your tank becomes a little more comfortable for you, you can migrate over to more complicated fish. You can get gobies. You can get clown gobies. You can get sand sifting starfish, which are really awesome. You can get clownfish. If it wasn't for Nemo, I don't think half of the people on the planet Earth would have ever bought a saltwater tank. So thank you, Nemo, and thank you, Pixar or Disney, whatever. But yes, the tank planning, there is no difference, people. The only difference is salt.
I think you can use the same equipment from freshwater that you can for a saltwater tank if you're just doing fish,
Um,
right?
by
Basically,
all means,
it's a
you can
filter,
use,
and all
yes,
you need to do is buy the salt mix now for the water.
yes, that is correct. Now, the reason we buy sumps, and you'll hear words like sumps and reactors and controllers and probes. The reason why we add sumps is for water volume. So if you have a, let's say, 30-gallon tank, and I'm not promoting 30-gallon tank, but 30-gallon tank, and you put a sump, which is a filter that is basically a fish tank that's under the tank that your main water is running through, and you put your heaters in there, you put all your equipment in there so you don't see it in your main tank. But now in 2021, we have inline heaters. We have LEDs. We have LEDs that are the LEDs over this tank are actually less than an inch thick. So unless you walked up on this tank, you would not know that those LEDs are there, and you wouldn't see them. We have internal protein skimmers. We have we have the limitless, but you can run a saltwater tank with an aqua killer. I my buddy Mike in Massachusetts, Mike from Mass, he didn't want to get a saltwater tank for years and years and years. He kept saltwater fish, he kept angelfish. I nagged him and nagged him and nagged him until he finally got a 40-gallon breeder. That tank's running, I think, 3 or 4 years now with an aqua clear filter, a protein skimmer, and a heater. I shipped him corals from Brooklyn. He bought corals. He had frog spawns in there. He had mushrooms in there. So you can do it without going overboard. Now, should you buy the better equipment when you have the means to do so? By all means. But if you do that not knowing enough about the hobby, the chances are when things go wrong, and they usually do, there are people right now that I see on the internet struggling with algae problems because the equipment, let's be honest, in a freshwater tank, you get algae, right? You get algae in a freshwater tank. Guess what?
Yes.
You get algae in a saltwater tank. What's the difference? No difference. Bacteria, lack of maintenance, fish waste, and nutrients. The same thing. Freshwater tank, saltwater tank. It's just that people are more quick to jump into chemical fixes in a saltwater tank than they are in a freshwater tank. Most of the freshwater people just do a 50% water change, or I've seen people do 90% water changes, and to each his own. But in a saltwater tank, you have the same issues. You have nutrients, and the new craze now is dosing phosphates, which me personally, I haven't done. I don't believe in it because I believe in feeding the fish. Fish will generate phosphates, but that's me. We can argue that all day. Um, Don Gray says he ran the Skilter. Don, you're old. I'm telling Don personally he's old. I ran a Skilter. I think they came out with the Skilter in 97,
I
98,
remember.
90, 1997. It was the best thing since sliced bread. It was a hang on the back filter with the protein skimmer built in. We loved it. I don't think you could find one if you went on eBay right now. There's a challenge. If you guys find it on eBay, post a picture of it on the Facebook page. I want you guys to go to Lehigh Valley Aquarium Society Facebook page, find a Skilter, Skilter, post a picture on it, and post a comment that you found it. I'm gonna look for it. Maybe I'll get a prize or something. I'll give you guys something.
I
But the
found it.
equip. Oh, you cheated. She cheated.
I'll look
The
it up
equipment.
first, but there is one up there, but they want a lot of money for it.
Woo! How much do they want for that?
$87.
$87.
Yeah, I think
Now,
it's a brand new in the box one.
now that's a collector's item. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Skilter, like I said, was basically the equivalent of an aqua clear and a protein skimmer that hung on the back of your tank. It was going to do everything, and it worked. But if it overflowed, like if the skimmer cup overflowed, I think I drilled a hole in mine and put airline valve so that the water would run into a bucket or something. But it was just another piece of technology. Technology comes and goes. The science is always going to stay the same. Um, the other thing that I'm going to mention is what you need in a tank. You need rock, live rock, or if you don't have live rock and you're doing a fish only tank, you can put dead coral, you can put dead decorations in your tank. You can use media inside your protein, inside your sump or filter to do your biological filtration. They call it biorings or marine, what is it? Marine aquarium, I believe it's marine land, marine aquarium makes a bio brick. You can put that in your sump and create your biological cycle inside your sump. I have a hang on the I have an aqua clear. I put my biological media inside the aqua clear when I start a new tank. I can take that media then and put it in another tank when I'm starting it. So you need biological or you need live rock. Now, Dan Sprangler says, "What do you think about the skimmer on Sea Kim titles?" Um, I can't have an opinion unless I used it. I haven't used it, so I don't have an opinion of it. I saw it, but once again, you may set it up on your system, you may love it, and the next person may set it up and may hate it. So filtration is all in the eyes of the user. Have you used the Aqua Clear, Karen, on your tanks?
Um,
Or you
I
use mostly sponge filters?
I'm using sponge filters, and I'm using a Whisper brand. I've got a lot of different types of filters, but the real easy, convenient one is a hang in the tank Whisper filter, and it's
Uh-huh.
really easy to just pull the cartridge out, put a new one in, and it's
Yeah.
also you have to make the cartridge yourself, so it's easy to customize it and add some extra ammonia removing. I think it's not dolomite, zeolite,
Yeah.
or something like that to it.
Hmm. But all of those things are biological media, and all of those things will kickstart your tank and keep your tank going. Um, I had a school of mollies, which I'm trying to pull up. I had a school of mollies that I never intended to breed in this tank, but they actually ended up breeding in the tank, and the coral grew around them. So that's the perfect example of, you know, cycling a tank. I had a simple spin stream, which was not a pump, but it was basically a spinning power head hooked up to a return pump that's built into the tank. And there's no other equipment on that tank. There is a return pump, a heater, and lights. Oh yeah, and I got a protein skimmer probably 8 months after I bought the tank just to oxygenate the water. But right now it's not even running. I don't have it on because I'm programming it to work off another controller, so I didn't even get to set that up. But simple stuff, all about the science, all about the time and investment. The only other thing that I'll say to that is if you're going to buy equipment for a saltwater tank, see it working, see somebody that's running it. Because I went to a store yesterday and we talked about a certain protein skimmer, and it was very noisy. It was a relatively new protein skimmer. It was very noisy, and it didn't really fit the way the person thought it was going to fit. So we get really caught up in ordering things over the internet, but it's not like buying it from your local store where you can see it on a tank or take it back and have a day's turnaround. When you order, you got to wait 2, 3 days to get it, and then you got to go and bring it back. And in all that time, you don't have that piece of equipment. So, yeah, try to investigate your equipment before you run out there and invest a lot of money. And spending thousands of dollars to start a tank, me personally, you're going to spend at least, I would say, to start a tank, if you don't already have equipment like skimmer, not even a skimmer, I don't even count that, like a filter. You got to get the tank, you got to get the stand, you have to get the light, you have to get a heater. I would say any tank, freshwater or saltwater, you're going to start out with at least $200 to $300 before you even get fish, before you even get fish food, before you get anything else. You're looking at least $200 to $300, and that's tank, stand, and probably gravel. Maybe you get a light. Saltwater, same thing. Am I telling you to spend $300 and build a saltwater tank? No. Can it be done? Yes. If you're seasoned and experienced, by all means you can do it. Um, Saltwater is harder than freshwater because we make it harder. The science is very similar. Only thing you're doing is testing salt and pH. And if you're not keeping coral, I got news for you. The pH isn't as much as a factor unless you're keeping coral. So look out, freshwater people. We may be getting you the salt. The other thing I'm gonna say is um, just the tank in itself. Know where you're gonna put it. Buy a book. YouTube is awesome. Am I a professor? No. Have I been keeping fish a long time? Yes. I started cleaning and maintaining fish tanks when I was 12 years old. I hung around the fish stores. I hung around the fish stores, Al's Aquarium, Brooklyn. I looked for people that weren't interested in cleaning their tanks, and I says, "Hey, for $20, I'll clean your tank once a week, once a month, whatever you want to do. Per visit, $20." Started my own business cleaning tanks. I learned a lot about people. Most people that buy tanks don't want to clean them. So I don't. Can I get a witness? most, most people buy a tank. They don't want to clean it. Now you add to the fact that now you have to mix salt. You don't want to mix salt. Do you have to mix salt? Yes, a saltwater tank. You can buy the salt pre-mixed. You still have to mix it. Um, get your spouse's input before you buy it. Don't just show up with a tank. Like me, I'm guilty. Don't just show up with a tank and it's in the middle of the living room, because if it sits there and it's ugly, wife's not gonna like it. Your husband's not gonna like it. Get something pretty. Spend the extra money. Um, get something that is a decorative piece that adds to the room, because when it adds to the room, you're gonna spend time in taking care of it. It's like buying a car. If you get a junky old car, do you wash it? No. When you buy a car for $1,000 and it's got three different wheels on it and tires are already bald, 9 out of 10, how many times are you going to spend $20 in a car wash? Most people, when they buy an old car, they don't wash it. Buy something nice that you like, that's a piece of furniture or make it look like so. Um, what was I going to say? The next thing I would say is here's a picture of a room. Hopefully you can see that. Nice little tank, both sides of the room. When you come into the room, it's nice. Only one problem: wall to wall carpet. If you have carpet in your house, think twice before putting a tank in there because you are at some point, no matter what you do, I don't care if you have an automatic water change system. I don't care if you have the Messiah comes in on a flying carpet and comes in there and delivers water to your tank, floats on air. You will get water on the floor. If you have carpet, you can get a runner. You can actually get tile planks. You can get the laminated tile and put a little plank under your fish tank stand and make it look like a little platform, and it'll save your carpet. Believe me, your carpet is going to get wet. I've seen horror stories of mold on the carpet when I've helped move tanks out of apartments, and it is crazy. It is really, and not to mention, mold is dangerous for you if you have children or animals. You can grow mold and not know it. Um, what I'm going to say, the risk of leak. We have leak sensors. You can get a leak sensor for $30. Not enough people do it. You can get leak sensors that not only beep and give you an alarm. I think I paid $39 after I ended up stepping into a puddle in my dining room on the floor. True story, 4 months ago. The tank's been in there 18 years. I've had water on the floor at least 4 times. I said, why don't I have a leak sensor? they're $20 at Home Depot. You can get a leak sensor for $20 at Home Depot. And if you get one drop of water, it'll beep. It'll send an alarm to your phone. You can even get an email. Yes, Stefan, Al's was on Nostrand Avenue in Brooklyn, Al's Aquarium. Al taught me everything about tanks except all the equipment. He didn't believe in all of that equipment either. He didn't sell me the farm, and God bless him. He passed away a few years ago, but having a good mentor, you will get water on the floor. So invest in a leak sensor. I know the Hydros controller comes with a leak. You can buy a rope leak sensor that you can actually wrap around and extend the length of the tank. So if you get water on one side of the tank or any side, you get an alarm, you'll get an email. I'm trying to pull up the picture of mine. I believe mine is made by Wasserman. I believe it's made by Wasserman. I'll post a picture of it in the Facebook page. Saved my life. I was working on my filter. I didn't even know water was coming out of the back of the filter until the leak sensor went off. It gave me a loud alarm, and I was like, what's that noise? It was a leak sensor. Spend $20, get one, Home Depot. Test kits, test your water. I don't want to go on too long. We're running a little long. I try to keep it really straight and to the point. Test kits, freshwater test kits, saltwater test kits. You're going to test for ammonia. You're going to test for pH. You're going to test for alkalinity. If you're keeping a fish-only tank, you don't necessarily need alkalinity. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn off this light behind me so I'm not blinding you. There you go. Should have did that before. Buy test kits. Make sure that you get a good one. Red Sea makes a good one. I don't care if you get the cheapest test kit on earth. API makes a test kit. It's better than not having any test kit. Please test the water. I went over to a friend's house and he's like, oh, my fish are dying. Saltwater tank. I set it up for him, plumbed it, everything. He had everything in the tank running. He says, fish are dying. He says, D, this was a 300-gallon tank in Westchester. He said, D, all my fish died. I said, what happened? He was messing around in the tank. All of the fresh water from his automatic top off that I told him, get an automatic top off, get a unit. If you're going to get an automatic top off system, get a unit that you can shut off and on. Don't get gravity fed. He was messing around cleaning the tank, bumped something. The float switch never went down, and his freshwater tank was his saltwater tank. It became freshwater. He killed $3,000 worth of fish.
Oh my gosh.
And actually, it's probably more than that because against, against recommendation, we went to the store. He fell in love with every fish, pufferfish, tang. He spent $3,000 in that, easy. Saltwater tank became a freshwater tank for one piece of equipment that could have saved him. It was a $80 auto top off. Myself and another friend set the tank up where we had the discreet. Says, I don't think you should do it like that, but it's your tank. Test kit. He could have tested the salinity and saw that it was 1.1, whereas usually 1.25 or 1.26. It was pretty much freshwater, like barely salt water. So get test kits, get leak sensors, keep it simple. And please, by all means, they actually have a handheld saltwater test kit that Milwaukee makes. Milwaukee makes a saltwater tester. It'll, just like the handheld, you dip it in your water, gives you a reading. You can go from tank to tank, takes 5 minutes, test all your water. The other thing I'm going to say is fish. And the fish are the most important thing. Fish, we mentioned it before, know what kind of fish you're going to get. If you're new to the saltwater hobby, I can't recommend enough. I'm going to get the name of this book. It's called Marine Fishes. It's by Scott Michael. I can turn the phone around. Let me know if you can see that.
Yes, right there.
Best investment. Another one is called the Marine Aquarium Encyclopedia. I'm a big advocate of getting books. I have a library like you wouldn't believe. My books are probably, once again, older than me. As a kid, I got into the habit of collecting books, old books, because I stunk at basketball. And for those of you, sometimes black guys can't jump either. We end up on the bench, I says, man, I'm not going to sit here. I got into the fish. I took my trips to the fish store and I started collecting and I started making money because when I went to the fish stores and adult says, hey, I can give this kid $10, $20. I charged by a gallon, $1 a gallon. So if you had a 50-gallon tank, $50, and I say, I'll give you a break. I'll charge you 40, and those books were my bread and butter because not only could I sound intelligent, but I could reference the book. And I says, well, based on Axelrod's study and his journey to the Asian river stream, that this fish needs running water, or this fish needs a temperature of above 78, or discus needed 82 degrees. But I couldn't do that from the internet because most of the time people on the internet are basing it on personal experience, and I could get a fish and you could get a fish and keep it in two completely different tanks and get a completely different result. So the importance of having a good book is priceless, especially in the saltwater hobby. If your fish gets sick, you can refer to the book. There's another book, I'm trying to remember the name of it, but the Encyclopedia, the Marine Encyclopedia of Fishes. Before you go to the store, look it up. You can download a digital copy of these books on your phone now, so that if you go to the store to buy a fish, you can actually bring the app, bring your phone with you. You can hit the little microphone and say hawkfish. And they'll say, this is a hawkfish, requires 78-degree temperature, a tank of at least 10 gallons to 20 gallons. It'll give you all of the information on the fish, and it'll help you identify what the fish is supposed to look like. So if you're in the store, you'll see a fish that's red, but it looks pink. Maybe that fish just got out of the bag. Maybe it's going through a salt creep or a pH shock. But since you have a reference, you can use that when you go to the store. The same guy with he had pseudomugals, very hard to find fish. The fish looked green, but it was supposed to be like orangish. And I was like, you know what? That's not the fish that they're selling you. They're selling you one fish and calling it something else. So unless you knew this guy at the Petco. He didn't know that he had a very valuable fish that I would have probably bought them if he didn't buy them, but he had no idea because they weren't marked right in the store. So
Yeah.
how do you know? How do you know? They don't know. The people in the store are only going by what's on the bag. And if the bag's wrong, now you bought a fish that you take it home and it eats all the other fish. And he says, "Oh, he told me this was a dimsel, but it's really a hogfish, or it's really a grouper." I've seen people with groupers in their tank. A grouper will get 2 feet across. Um, there used to be a fish I don't see a lot in the stores now, a panther grouper. It's a beautiful black and white fish. It's usually about this big when you buy it, like an Oscar. But if I told you it will get this big, you wouldn't believe me. My old boss went from a 55-gallon tank to a 200-gallon tank just because he had that fish and it was a pet that he had so long that he didn't have the heart to get rid of it. He bought a 200-gallon tank to house that one particular fish. So get a book, join a club, be with someone knowledgeable that you can actually go to the stores with and ask questions. Hail Hydros. I'm looking at the comments and Dave Wilson says, "What's up?" I see a lot of people on there. Take the Chronic Fitness. What's up, Yolanda? Shout out to Yolanda. I'm going to say once again, Lehigh Valley Aquarium Society. Check them out on their Facebook page. We're going to have some big things going on, Lehigh Valley Aquarium Society. They have some really well-known speakers coming up, better than me. Like I said, my network went down and I says, I don't care. Well, hell or high water, we're going to meet you guys online. We're going to make sure that the people get it. I'm going to owe you guys another presentation. I'm going to do it big. I'm going to have laser lights. I'll probably have dancing gals. I'm going to have guys in jump shoots jump out of a cannon and stuff like that.
Well, no, I appreciate anybody that was considering trying saltwater. Like you said, talking to someone knowledgeable, and I don't have that knowledge, so I'm glad that you could share that with us. And if anybody had any questions, I guess now's the time. If there's any final questions, if anyone wants to
let me check out. I know Farmbar Reef says the leak rope for the Coral View Hydros 4 is pretty cool. Installed it around his sump. Now he has, I'll just give you the brief on Farmbury Reef. He has a 420-gallon freshwater tank. This is a guy that has a 600-gallon saltwater tank, and he was really, really nervous about starting a freshwater tank. It's usually the other way around, but he has a 600-gallon saltwater tank, and he's like, wow, this freshwater tank stuff is really overwhelming, and I really, really intimidated. I'm talking about he bought a CO2 tank, and he got another controller, and it's amazing. We're gonna go big, and I'm gonna help him as much. He's in Canada. I'm gonna help him as much as I possibly can. But it's really interesting because here's a guy with a saltwater tank. It's marvelous. He has the beautiful lights. I'm the old school. He's the new school. He's the tech. I'm a tech, but I'm really about the science. And he was really intimidated with going to freshwater. So it goes to show that there is a lot. The same way you have to do your homework with building a saltwater tank, and a freshwater tank has the same homework. Plants die, fish die. You spend money, and money goes out the window. One thing that I will say that if you guys aren't part of a club, join a club. Lehigh Valley, East Conference. We have. I'm going blank now. We have the Boston Aquarium Society. We have the Brooklyn Aquarium Society. We have the Long Island Reefers. We have East Coast Reefers. We have Brooklyn Cichlid Association. There are clubs almost anywhere. The Seattle Aquarium Society, I've looked at their streams, beautiful live streams. Join a club. Take part in a club. Don't only join the club for the auctions. Join the club and participate. Most of the time they have a board. The board needs help. This will help you. You'll learn about fish. Yeah, you may even score some stuff because people are breeding fish. They have tanks. They have equipment. We trade equipment. We sell equipment. Um, Select Pet says, don't forget the smoke machine. Yeah, I'm gonna get a smoke machine just because you said that. I'm gonna have fog coming off of this tank, like it's gonna be a laser light show. Um, Lehigh Valley needs people. Every club needs people. Um, it takes a lot to run a club. It takes people to run a club. It takes information. It's really interesting. I've been with the Brooklyn Aquarium Society the better of 10 years, about maybe 12 or so, 15. But I've known about them forever. It's just one Marty, my friend Marty, that I met when I was probably 11 years old. I was like, man, I couldn't believe that met this guy again that I think got me into the hobby. And he's like, oh, Dave, you've been in fish. You have to join the Brooklyn Aquarium Society. You have to join a club. And I fell in love with the club because not only was it a group of people that loved what I love, and it's kind of corny to say that you love fish, but to say that I create an ecosystem, I create a life-giving brand in my home, saltwater, freshwater. Um, just so you know, I'm trying to impress Karen, but I'm growing mint and basil in this tank.
Oh, wow.
I think I want to say that I'm the only person that I know that ever did that. Maybe I'm wrong. If somebody wants to challenge me, um, and I know we're talking about saltwater, but yeah, I got mint in here. I have basil in here. I have bamboo in there, and I'm going to grow plants in this saltwater tank. So be on the lookout for this baby here coming soon. I'm going to grow plants. I'm going to try to create an ecosystem self-sustaining, like almost a hydroponic type system. So without knowing the people that I met in all these different clubs, both in PA, Pennsylvania, um, Connecticut, we usually have the Northeast Conference that, hopefully we can do something this year, but with the state of things, we may not or may be able to do. I wouldn't know how to keep plants alive. I wouldn't know how to start plants from seed outside and bring them into the aquarium. I grew them outside, I cut them, and then I grew them in the aquarium and they took off. They looked like they were dying, which would scare you, like algae. In a saltwater tank, you get algae, and people run out and they buy all kinds of chemicals. If there's a chemical for anything and everything, pretty much diatoms will get you to buy them. Don't do that. Learn the science. Get someone that is experienced that had your problem. Go to their house if you can. I mean, now it's kind of hard with COVID. Protect yourself. We can go to our house virtually. StreamYard, Zoom, Google Meet. So you can see their tank and explain what's going on and get help. Um, Thank you, y'all. Try my best. I'm gonna be eating that basil, by the way, Yolanda. I learned
Making
hydroponics. I tried to do saltwater outside, didn't do good. I failed. I'm like anybody else. Some things do good, some things you fail. Um, I have been trying to reach out to people on the West Coast aquarium societies and link them up with the East Coast because now we're in the technological era. There's no reason we can't live stream. I had Chad from Reef Nutrition on a few weeks ago. Chad's on the West Coast. We can talk about what they're doing on the West Coast. Stores on the West Coast that ship coral, stores on the West Coast that ship plants. I can talk to him about what's going on and doing zooplankton and copepods and things across the country. So these are reasons why you want aquarium societies, you want clubs, because this is where you bring people together.
All
And
right. Thank you, Dee. I think we should probably wrap it up now.
and that's going to be it. I appreciate you guys having me. I talk you to death. If anybody knows me, they know it's a fact. Um, Check out the Lehigh Valley Aquarium Society on Facebook. Their web page is going to be coming soon. We're going to be posting all the events. We're going to post the store information that you mentioned. Everything's going to be on the Facebook page.
Something fishy. It's already listed as one of the stores for the Lehigh Valley area in the files section of the Facebook group.
All right.
And check out Dee's YouTube channel.
D from Brooklyn. Forget about me. They find me anyway.
It's not just saltwater, it's freshwater and saltwater information that you can get there.
Yep. Want to thank all of you guys for tuning in. Give it a thumbs up, click like, share. And I always end my shows by saying, I keep my sanity by keeping aquariums. Do something nice for somebody and something nice comes back to you. Be nice to each other. And with that, anything else, Karen? We will wrap it up.
No, that's it. Thank you very, very, very much.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.